Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So from time to time I do teardown videos where I show you the components inside a guitar and we take some measurements and things like that. Well, I never really intended to do this with this 1992 American Telecaster, but as it turns out, it has some finish flaws that are really significant and they're very hard to capture on camera, but essentially I think the wood underneath the finish is shrinking and it's caused some really deep divots in these finish areas on the back, especially right in here. And it's actually on the face too. I mean, it's all over the guitar. It's right here, really prominent on the upper horn and right in here in the waist somewhere. But at any rate, I thought I could fill them with something, and I was going to use my little Solarez trick, which, this stuff is like a UV based epoxy, so it's a UV hardening epoxy. I tried it out on a sample guitar and it just did not blend very well at all, and really I don't think there's any way that I'm going to be able to fill these ginormous voids in this thing and make it work out in my favor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tear this thing down, and I've got some plans for some of the parts. So let's just do a teardown video today, and I'll get into what I'm going to do with the parts later, but let's get started by removing the strings. Now, if you're wondering, I actually will save these strings for use in a future project. I may not use them right away, but they're always useful to hang on to just in case you have a project where you're missing a string or two and you need something temporary for a setup especially. All right, so let's move on from removing the strings, and we'll remove these neck screws out of the plate here. All right, so with the neck removed, you can see the micro tilt adjustment hole, which is a little bit bigger in diameter than the actual neck holes themselves for the neck screws. It's big enough, it looks like, just to receive that T-nut that's on the bottom of it. And I don't know for a fact, but it looks to me like the adjustment screw for the micro tilt is 1/8. I'm sure that's an easy spec to look up online. Before I flip this thing over, I'm going to go ahead and tape down the string ferrules because they are quite easy to remove. All right, so with this thing flipped over, I'll go ahead and get you the measurements for the neck pocket and the neck itself. All right, so measurements. So let's see, let's do neck width, or actually let's do body width in the neck pocket. And that is 2.2 inches. And corresponding neck width is 2.175. Let's see about depth. Depth with the finish is looking like 0.7. And let's see, how about neck pocket length? That's a little close to figure out, but let's call that 2.96. So there's some rough measurements for the neck pocket and the neck itself. And again, this is a American 22 fret neck, so it has an overhang, and that's the overhang starting right at the 22nd fret and overhanging the pick guard just a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and open up this pick guard cavity and sort of see what's inside here. Oh, interesting. Okay. So this looks like a braided shield on this Telecaster pickup, this neck pickup, and it looks like they are Alnico magnets, obviously shielded pickup. It's got its cover on it, obviously, and it looks like there is a braided shield of some kind here that looks like it's got some. I'm gonna have to take this control plate off to see what that looks like on the other side. Yeah, a weird connection here. It's got sort of a bunched up shield here and then some heat shrink tubing or something here over the wire. Let's go ahead and take off the control plate. All right, well, there's some things I wasn't expecting in here. So there's a piece of heat shrink tubing all around probably the lower 2/3 of this pickup wire from the neck. And it looks like it's grounded to the body of the switch, which is not surprising. And all the other wiring looks pretty standard, but there is a double pot here, and I've got to figure out what that actually is doing. But there's a resistor that connects from the upper pot to the ground, And then there's a capacitor that connects from the lower pot to the ground. I'm sure that has to do with tone, but I don't know why there's a stacked pot here. I'm really surprised to see that here. Other than that, wiring looks pretty standard. Got the connection to the jack, connection to the bridge, and obviously your pickup connectors here. Wiring the tone to the, or the volume to the tone. These do look like original pots. Let's see, date code on this one is 1992. And the date code on this one is a little bit obscured, but I can see the 1990 part of it. So this is all original. Just got to figure out why that's a stacked pot. All right, just a little bit of an update on this tone control here. So basically what this thing turned out to be is a TBX tone control, and it has a tiny detent right about there, about halfway. And I'll give you a little bit more Fender spec about it, and I'll show you a picture of it online in terms of the kit you can buy from Fender. But essentially it turns out to be a stacked tone pot with two different values, one value from 1 to 5 and one value from 6 to 10, with a small detent in the middle. The specs on this from Fender show that half of the pot is a 250K pot with a 0.022 microfarad capacitor, and the other half is a 1 meg pot with a resistor, which changes the frequency options that are available to you. When I was looking for the specs of this pot online, I found quite a surprising deal on these on Amazon, so be sure to check out my links for that. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take off the bridge and just go ahead and take a look at this pickup itself. I can already tell just from where I'm at now that it's got some insulation around it, or the windings around it are black cloth. But let's go ahead and take off these screws and see what's underneath. All right, so it looks like the factory has placed some masking tape over the bridge wire just to make sure that it ends up in the contact with the bridge, I guess, but it did not pass through the bridge hole, which I think is kind of interesting. Then you've got Alnico magnets on this bridge pickup and pretty standard black and yellow wires there. So nothing actually very special about that. Let's get some resistance readings off those pickups. All right, the resistance reading off this pickup is 7.22K. So that's a standard American Tele bridge pickup. And the resistance reading off this neck pickup, 7.52K. That's a little bit surprising. I would have expected this to be a little bit less hot, but anyway, looks like, let's see, other specs. We've got a 3-layer pick guard, white, black, white, flat top knobs on this, definitely CTS pots, definitely an Oak Grigsby switch. Nothing really notable inside here in the bridge cavity, except for the fact that the bridge cavity is grounded with a lug and a screw, and the cavity is shielded with paint. Also a shielded cavity in here. A little bit covered by some of the sunburst finish, but otherwise you can see the shielding paint. And strap buttons are, of course, the Fender strap lock strap buttons. And again, it's got micro tilt here in the neck pocket, all stainless hardware. Looks like the date stamp is visible. I don't see a date stamp on the actual neck itself, but I do see the maker, Chavez, and of course the micro tilt disc. And there is a date or a sticker here that would show the date or some of the inspectors on it, but it does not show that. It shows kind of a, gosh, I don't even know what that says, but anyway, 3-color sunburst. That's pretty normal for these. A 1992 date. So we've got an N2 date code on the neck. 22 fret, rosewood fretboard, maple neck, Biflex truss rod. Anyway, that is the results of this thing. I'm going to go ahead and put some of it back together so I can sell this body as a loaded body. But I will be using the neck in another project, and I promise to show you all what's going on with that. But that will be for next time. So anyway, this has been a teardown of a 1992 USA Telecaster. And I appreciate you guys hanging with me. I love it when you guys give me likes and comments. And I especially love when you give me subscriptions. So I'll see you guys next time, and thanks a lot.